Now that we've learned all of our derivative rules, power rule, sines and cosines, product rule, quotient rule, chain rule, e to the power, logs, we're going to wrap it all together by doing this same basic item they do at the University of Michigan. I call it a derivers license quiz. Let's go to this website. I've got it loaded up here. We don't have a password for their system, so we're just going to do a guest login. So we're going to basically do the same thing that their students do when practicing. We're going to say take this practice derivative. GW stands for gateway, but that's the only one here. Don't click on this email instructor because your instructor does not work at University of Michigan, so that would just go nowhere, I'm sure. So let's do this. So it will give us a randomly generated set of 7 problems, hopefully. There we go. And for each one, we just take the derivative and type our answer in here. And some people in math120 often have trouble with formatting things so a computer can understand them. And some people even get frustrated, which is understandable, saying, well, I know how to do these on paper, I just don't know how to type them into the computer reliably. And yeah, I understand that's frustrating. But a lot of real-life math these days is done by having to type formulas into computers in a reliable fashion. So I think that's an important skill here, where just paper and pencil doesn't cut it anymore for actually doing math. So here I'm going to take the derivative, take a sec to think about what's the derivative of e to the 5 minus x. Well, I think it's time for the chain rule. So derivative of e to the stuff is e to the stuff. And then what's the derivative of 5 minus x? It's minus 1. So you can type e to a power like this. You have to be very careful about your parentheses. Like in Excel, e to a power you do with exp, but here I'm not sure it would understand that. So I can say preview answer, and it shows me my answer the way it understood it, kind of in more traditional math notation. This one, what's the derivative of log of e over x squared? Well, derivative of log stuff is 1 over the stuff, so e divided by x squared, and then times the derivative of the stuff. What's the derivative of e to the e over x squared? I can think of over x squared as x times x to the negative 2, so I've got an e constant multiplier there, and then minus 2 times x to the minus 3. Really doesn't hurt to hit preview answers. Preview answers isn't submitting the answer, it's just saying show me this the way the computer understands how I typed it. So is that what I wanted it to do? Yeah, that's right. Now I could have simplified this, like 1 over 1 e over something. I could have simplified, but this system doesn't care about simplification, and I say don't spend your time doing simplifications. They might end up being wrong. So just type it kind of the most natural derivative way. I could have written this as 1 over x cubed, for example, but there's just no point bothering with simplifications here. How about this one? So power rule, first of all. So 3s to the 4th plus 2s plus 4 squared times, what's the derivative of the inside? 4s cubed plus 2. And then the derivative of plus 4 is 0. So I'll preview that. All right, so there's 7 questions on every quiz. You should be doing this without notes, without checking in against a website. The only thing that I would suggest, these 2 derivative rules I always have a hard time remembering, and they do pop up on this quiz, so these are the only 2 things you're allowed to have down and refer to as you're doing the quiz for purposes of my class. So derivative of tangent is secant squared. Derivative of a to the x rather than e to the x is log a times a to the x. And you might still have to use the chain rule with these, like if it's tangent of x squared, then you'd have secant of x squared squared times the derivative of x squared. Or if this x was something more complicated like sine x or something, you'd still have to use the chain rule on it. All right, so it gives you 30 minutes to do all that. So that's what, 4 minutes a problem roughly. So you'd go and do all that and then say grade test. and it will tell us which ones we got right. Okay, that answer was correct, that answer was correct, that answer was correct, and I didn't even fill these out. So you should practice until you can reliably get 6 out of 7, and then once you do get 6 out of 7, you should, on the one you get 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7, you should print that one to PDF and submit that to Canvas to show that you accomplished this. So this is where we're giving evidence of mastery of all these derivative rules. A few other quick things. So the computer system in interpreting math, it doesn't understand ln with a capital L or ln with a capital L, capital N. It only understands ln with a lowercase l, lowercase n. So you have to be a little careful about that. That's where that simplify, or the preview feature comes in handy. If you want to type a square root, like in this problem there's a square root, I'm not saying this is the right answer here, but you could type sqrt and then in parentheses whatever you want to take the square root of. So just to preview that to show that it understands what I typed there. I typed sqrt and it did that. You could also do like that to the 1/2. That's another way of taking the square root. And see it understood that. Either one of those should be fine. If you have a problem where you're going to be doing the product rule or chain rule, product rule or chain rule or quotient rule especially, remember you have to protect various things with parentheses. Sometimes it's really handy to type the parentheses first and then go in and fill in what all needs doing. Let's see if there's a good one here. Okay, so this one is going to be product rule, right? So I know the product rule is f prime g plus f g prime. Now I don't mean to submit it this way, but we'll go back and erase the f prime and write it. Well, what is the derivative of square root? It's 1/2 x to the negative 1/2, and then g we'll just say log x minus 3, and then here I can say sqrt. So I'm doing all of this within the parentheses I already laid out, which is a way of kind of keeping myself safe. What's the log of derivative of log 1 over derivative of x minus 3 is 1 over x minus 3 times the derivative of x minus 3, which is 1. So let's just preview that. So again, that doesn't check that it's right. It's just checking that it understands the way I typed it in. On this one, which would be a quotient rule, you could start with a parenthesis for the numerator and then type low in parentheses and then d high minus high d low divided by, and the bottom squared is just so straightforward you might as well just retype what you got there. There we go. And then go back and fill in what's the low thing, what's the derivative of the high thing. That way you're not going to make silly parentheses mistakes. All right.